Hello and welcome to another episode of Property-Pxrn Stars, the premium property podcast. And today I'm joined by Charlie Lamdin. Now, Charlie, the last podcast that I did was quite controversial, and it was one recorded with Sam Ashdown. And the subject of that was stop doing property videos. And that caused quite a bit of controversy, had some interesting comments from people about it. I already know what I'm going to call this one. And you can probably guess. So before we get into that, how are you? Are you all right?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And you?
I'm good. Just one thing to ask you off subject before we even start. I read, I think online that you fly seaplanes. Is that right?
Yes, I do. Oh, good. Don't get me started. You won't be.
As if light aircraft isn't dangerous enough, you decide to take the land out of the equation and then come into land on sea.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and I've got lots of videos of it on my personal YouTube channel of flying me and my kids around in Norway and in Maine and America. And yeah, there's only 1% of pilots have a seaplane qualification.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's just lit me up because, and amongst the pilot fraternity, we're known as the seaplane nutters.
Yeah, I get that.
But it is honestly just the coolest thing, and the journey to get there was amazing.
To get your qualifications, you mean? Or
to get my seaplane rating. So a week in Lake Como, where there's a seaplane school, the world's oldest seaplane school in Lake Como. So we put an Airbnb there. That was back in 2013. And I've been all over Alaska doing it, all over North America, Florida, all around Norway, Scotland.
Wow.
And it's the freedom. You know, there's no runway, there's no air traffic control. And you get out to the wilderness, and it's next level freedom. It's absolutely incredible, and it's where the worlds of boating and aviation kind of meet, and it's truly magical. I got my seaplane rating in 11 years ago, nearly 12 years ago now. It's just the greatest thing in the world.
Well, as far as hobby goes, Charlie, you're a lot braver than I am. So fair play to you. It does sound pretty cool, but I'm not sure I've quite got the stomach for it. Anyway, enough about that. Speaking of bravery, there's been a very brave subject, I think, that you've put out there, and this will probably be the subject in the title of this podcast, which is for estate agents to stop doing valuations. And that's probably intentionally dramatically put, maybe, because valuations are, in the sense that you would know them as market appraisals or whatever, are the lifeblood of an estate agency, and you're saying stop doing that. So let's get into it. Why should estate agencies stop doing valuations?
Because it doesn't help sell anything. It's as simple as that. It's not designed to be clickbaity and attention grabbing. It is plain and simple. As the word suggests, you shouldn't be doing valuations, because the job of a residential estate agent is to create a market for a home. The market decides what a property is worth, not an agent with conflicting incentives being asked to make a prediction. And that's all a valuation is. Even if you're a fully qualified valuer, that is still all a valuation is. It is an educated guess at what somebody might pay. And that is not what agents are paid to do, right? And the whole industry is so obsessed with it. And it's a massive distraction, and it leads to much longer transaction times. It leads to a higher fall-through rate, and it leads to market sclerosis, where agents who use very long sole agency contracts have got, and I know this from first-hand experience working with Carringtons, right? There are sellers stuck on the market with Foxtons and Dexters in 6 months contracts who are simply just trapped until their 6 months come to an end. They won't be released. They can't sell with those guys. They don't want to sell with those guys. And so they are potential deal makers, and they're people who want to move. And the long sole agency contracts, which exist only to enable overvaluing, because without them, overvaluing doesn't work as a strategy. It's slowing down the market, reducing liquidity, lengthening transaction times, and increasing fall-through rates. It is the most self-defeating, stupid thing to do. Now, I say to sellers, if you need a valuation, go and pay a registered valuer for a red book valuation. If you actually want to valuation for the purpose of valuation. If you want to know what you can sell it for, the only way to be sure is to bring it to the market with the skill necessary to discover the real market for that property right now, which means at least a dozen people through the door in the first 2 weeks, at least, so that you get at least 3 or 4 offers. Then you know without any doubt what the market for that home is right now. As a seller, without those multiple offers, you don't know what you can sell your house for. But when you've got 2 or 3 or 4 offers in the same ballpark, there can be no argument that the market for that property has been discovered. And rather than relying on an estate agent's guess at the value that you have to wait 3, 6, 9 months to find out if they were right, and of course, typically, when overvaluing happens, they're not right, you will know within 5 weeks. You will know within 5 weeks exactly what you can sell for, because you will have offers. And only with offers is a seller in a position to move. Up until they've got offers, they're not going anywhere. Whatever they think, whatever they want, you can't move if moving requires selling your home without, if you've got one offer, have you got market value? Probably not. Right? If you've got 3 offers, you can be pretty confident, and they've happened quite quickly. You can be pretty confident.
So it's funny. We were sort of messaging about arrangements for this podcast yesterday, and in that conversation, you said, "Oh, I'd also want to talk about agency contracts." I said, "Bloody hell, Charlie! You're trying to solve every problem in the industry one by one here. This is going some." But actually, it's funny timing. So this week, I every 2 or 3 times a year, I make a big sort of offer on social media to do free premium market reports for people. I do the reports on 20CI and do a video and a walkthrough and so on. And you can actually see in the data, you can see the agents who, within probably 90% accuracy, the ones that do overvalue and lock into long contracts, because you see their price reduction rate, you see their withdrawal rate, you see their exchange rates, and you see that happening. Is it effective? Sometimes, to be honest, but is it efficient for the market? No, probably not. But let's get into the contracts sort of secondarily, because I think this valuation bit is a big subject in its own right. So diving into that then, so let's get practical about it. So let's not do valuation. So what does an agent say to a vendor when they're on that valuation, that market appraisal appointment? What do they talk to them about? Price. Vendors are always going to ask about price, and how does an agent handle that question in this new way of working?
So for the agents that have embarked on this journey with me, the golden rule is that no matter how much a vendor begs for a ballpark figure, you do not give it. Right? You absolutely don't, because the moment you go down that road, you have departed from the path which is faster transactions with higher completion rates, because an expectation is set. Whereas the only thing the seller should believe is, provided my home is brought to the market effectively, I will get the current market value for the home, and it's not possible to get any more. So what do they say on that conversation? First of all, never, and I really mean never, call it a valuation. Sellers only ask for a valuation because they don't know what else to ask for.
So what do they call the appointment, Charlie? Just quickly, what do they call that?
Call it. I mean, I call it a pitch. It is a conversation.
Is that what they call it with the vendor? They call it a pitch to the vendor.
They come around to have a conversation. It doesn't need an official label, right?
Okay.
It's because actually what it is it's a 2-way assessment, right? If you are a genuinely good agent that does not like working for free and does not like having your time wasted by sellers that are being unrealistic, you need to look them in the whites of their eyes and look for the red flags. Is this seller going to cost me money? And roughly speaking, the rule of thumb is that whether you sell a property or not, it costs you 1% of that property's value to try and sell it, to bring it to the market. So every vendor meeting that an agent has is actually an investment decision. Am I going to invest my time, my money, and my brand in attempting to sell this home? Or is this seller going to waste my time and cost me money? And the moment agents get that into their head, they start to become much more selective. They start to see the red flags from sellers going, hang on a second, these guys are absolute time wasters. And the contract terms that we've just discussed before we came on camera are specifically designed to put those sellers off, right? Because if a seller starts picking up on that contract going, what do you mean you're going to charge me half the fee if I decide not to accept an offer? Are you thinking of not accepting market value for your home? Because unless you're thinking of not accepting market value, that's not an issue. That clause just says, if we give you 3 proceedable offers within a period of time, and you choose not to accept any of them and discontinue, then you pay half the fee.
Is there any agreement on price bandings at least for that? So say I'm selling a £500,000 home and I get 3 proceedable offers of 400,000. Am I obliged to pay you half the fee if I don't proceed with one of those?
This is exactly why you don't discuss price. This is exactly why you don't discuss price, because you don't know what the market's going to be. I know of a flat where all of the online valuation tools for the flat put it between 550 and 750, right? It's been on the market at 400 and struggling to get offers at 375. And the agent didn't see that coming. So this is exactly why you don't even make estimates or guesses, because it derails and contaminates the process of true market discovery. The purpose of that clause, like if we get you 3 offers, if we get you 3 proceedable offers and you choose not to accept one, then you pay half the fee. That is not designed. But first and foremost, that clause is designed to flag up a seller, because if a seller starts fixating on that, like, oh, but hang on a second, what if I don't like any of the offers? That's a red flag that seller already subconsciously knows that their expectations are too high.
Mm-hmm. Right? Just before we go down this rabbit hole, I think, am I right in saying, Charlie, that clause and in that contract is an additional part of this? You could do, well, could you do the no valuations way? Could you follow that principle without this contract?
It's designed for that.
So let's to not confuse the two matters, let's just stick on the valuation bit, the no valuation bit for the minute, because I think that is an equally interesting conversation there. So because I went to your one-day event that you had in Hammersmith about this, because I was really interested in it, and I think like my perspective on it, and dare I say, I think maybe a lot of people think like, actually I like the principle of this, because it actually makes sense, and a lot of good agents say, look, I don't value a home, you don't value a home, the market values a home, all that sort of stuff.
But here's the valuation.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But that's the point. I was going to say the principles I like, but the practicalities is what I struggle to get my head around, and that's just probably I've not given it a fraction of thought as you have. There was a couple of things that you said in that event, and I made notes throughout it. There was one thing I liked. This is a little bit glib, but I quite liked it. You said, "How many valuations have you had? Which one are you going to believe?" And that was quite a good line. And then you said, "Talk process, not prices." So how does that part of it come into it then? Because I want to dive a bit deeper on this.
So I must credit the guy from Carrington's with the first one.
Oh, well, it was a great line.
That was him.
Hats off to him.
He said that's what he now says when he's meeting a vendor.
I think it's very good, yeah.
Like, how many are you going to meet? They're all going to give you a number. Which one are you going to believe?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it frames it very well, doesn't it?
Yeah. The talk process, not prices, that's mine. That's 100% mine. That's on my LinkedIn image. Right. It is, because it's not just at that initial meeting that you don't discuss prices. You only talk about process. It is throughout the entire journey. That rule starts to apply when, for example, a buyer says, how much do I need to offer? You do not give them a number. It's so critical to have, and the results prove it, right? All of those properties end up selling with very proceedable competing bids, which is why so few of them are in chains, and most of them are chain-free transactions, because they can pick and choose from all the offers, right? And to get to that point where you've got literally a rich picking of offers to choose from, and have a very quick exchange and a very almost perfect level of completion, it requires the agent to never discuss the price. So you might communicate a price, you communicate an offer. Okay, so you are a messenger. But when you're collating the offer, so buyers say, how much do I have to pay? So look, that's entirely up to you. We are the agent for the seller. We can't advise you. You must offer your maximum comfortable price. no more because you shouldn't overpay, and no less because you'll be increasing the chance of missing out. Your maximum comfortable price. And the buyer says, well, what is that? Sorry, we can't help you. You've got to figure that out yourself. And that frustrates the buyers, and some of them really kick and squeal about it. But actually, it forces them to figure out what their comfortable offer really is, and it results in much more solid offers. Rather than, I'm going to just offer the number the agent told me I have to offer without thinking it through, and therefore I'm going to flake out and pull out later when I realise it's too much. You end up with much more solid, considered offers. It also prevents that frothy bidding where everyone gets like deal fever and actually loses all sight of perspective and all, because what happens then? It always collapses. They all wake up the next day and go, what? No, I'm not paying that much.
Yeah.
And you have, there's flaky deals happen. So this is all about, to answer your question, right back to the start, talk process, not prices. So if you follow this process correctly, you do not need to do any market research before going around to a seller's house. You do not need to spend time. I know, right?
That in itself is a hell of a mindset leap for most people in the industry, right?
The mantra is, we don't work for free, right? I will apply my skill as an agent determining the launch price of your property if you instruct me. But that's not a couple of hours on some prop tech, right? That's not a couple of hours of figuring out which algorithm I'm going to manipulate to come up with a figure. It's not like I've seen it firsthand. All this data, and all that data has done that you guys all pay eye-watering amounts of money for, achieves nothing. It achieves ever longer transaction times, ever lower success rates, and ever lower fees. And you're all using the same stuff, so there's no point of difference. And it's all, that entire industry is just about getting the instruction, which is the wrong focus. It's getting the saleable instruction. So when you talk process, not prices, it's exactly the same conversation every time, which is, we follow a particular process, which ends up with these results, right? We get typically this many viewings in this many weeks, this many offers, and we're selling everything, 98, 99%. We're selling of everything within these few weeks. No guarantees that the same happens for your property. This is the other thing that completely flips the psychology, right? Every other agent is around there making wild promises. Oh yeah, we can definitely do this. Oh yeah, we're really confident. Oh, we've got such a lovely house. We're really excited. And they're literally setting themselves up for failure because they think they have to say what the seller wants to hear. And when you don't, when you just completely change that psychology and go, no, we make no promises other than we stick to this process, right? And the seller's like, this person's not trying to bullshit me. They're not giving me they're not trying to seduce me with a number. They're not trying to there's no big spinny, there's no jazz hands, whoa, it's so amazing, and videos and marketing and portals, and it's just, no, we have this process. It's a very reliable process, and it ensures we discover what the market for your property is today.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the podcast, and chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, then the premium property market is of some interest to you. But how interesting actually is it? Well, we can tell you that with a free personalized premium market report on the premium property market in your area. It shows you firstly the value of the premium market around you, and it also shows an in-depth competitor analysis as to what your competition are doing, the good, the bad, and in some detail as well. So you can perhaps make a strategy of how you would take some of that market for yourself if you wanted to. All you need to do is go to bydesignhomes.com/report. That's bydesignhomes.com/report, and we'll send it to you within a day or two. That's it. Back to the episode.
And it takes this many weeks.
Okay. So there's a question that I want to ask next, which is sort of the most pertinent question about this, which I'll get to in a second. The question I wanted to ask before that is, what if vendors want to know even ballparks so that they can know what they're going to do next? So if my house is worth, I use the same numbers, 500,000 or 600,000, then that affects what house I can go on to buy. So if they, how does that? I don't know how to ask that question other than how does that not come out in the wash as a problem?
If you, Mr. Seller, want to know how much you can afford to pay for your next home, our process will deliver you the 100% guaranteed answer to that question within 5 weeks.
Okay, so almost for them, they shouldn't be thinking about where they're going to buy next until they know what offers they've got on the table for theirs. Well, yeah, to an extent, I take it, because otherwise they're signing a
Anything else
blank
is
check, aren't
guesswork.
they?
Anything
Yeah.
else is guesswork. And this is why it's such, the whole thing is a house of cards set up to fail from the beginning when you give a seller a price expectation of what they can afford next.
Yeah.
And of course, nobody wants to tell them the brutal truth, like you
Yeah.
can't afford what you think you can, you can't afford what you want, and you're never going to make that move. Right?
Okay. And then so I guess how do you overcome this problem? Because there has to be a price somewhere. There has to be a price at the start of this process. There has to be a price on agency contracts, has to be a price on your website, has to be a price on the portals. What is that price? Because surely at some point that's got to be mentioned.
That's the launch price. And
Okay,
that's
let's talk about that.
determining the launch price is the first and arguably most critical part. I mean, the preparation of the launch, which involves getting the legals ready, it involves making the property completely sale ready so that you're offering buyers a very fast exchange should they want one, right? Is where all it's I mean, you can think of it like preparing a really complex, beautiful recipe. Yeah, you got to get the ingredients. You got to get good quality ingredients. You got to prepare them the right way, so that when you whack it in the oven or put it on the market, boom, you've got the diary full, competing bids, solid offer agreed within. I mean, they're typically doing it within 3 weeks, right? Within 3 weeks of launch. Now, how to achieve that launch price? Well, I mean, I spent a month training Carringtons on that process. Right? It's not like, hey, just do this and this, and it's ta-da. And I don't know if you remember, actually, in Hammersmith, there were those two guys from Milton Keynes who could not get their head around this part. But what about, how do you work it? Is it a percentage of the value? And he said, there isn't a value. The launch price has very little to do with the eventual sale price. The market will determine the eventual sale price, provided you get enough people through the door. Correct? Right? You cannot get competing bids without competing offers. You can't get the offers without viewings, and you can't get the viewings in enough numbers if you don't launch the property right. And it's not only the launch price, by the way. It's the when you say, for example, when you list all of the other things that you do as part of this process, right? No valuations is just one part. The buyers buying stuff through Carringtons are just going, why aren't all agents doing this? This is amazing. It's just like, we know we're going to have to pay full market value because there's lots of interest, but we're not surprised there's lots of interest. You're actually bringing the property to the market that's actually fucking ready to sell. Like, oof.
I wrote down something at that event about the launch price, and says that the only purpose of the launch price is to get people through the door.
Correct.
And that message is communicated to the seller.
Correct.
So it frames it
one
differently.
of the things that they say to the seller is, you're going to have to trust us on the launch price.
Okay, so dive into that. And this was, if I'm remembering correctly, this is a bit the guys from Milton Keynes conversation as well, if I'm thinking of the same one, where they were saying, okay, but what is that launch price? So ask you that question. What is that launch price?
That launch price is arrived at. It is treated as something that you cannot get wrong. So first of all, arriving at the launch price is treated as it's one of the critical links in the chain to a fast transaction. Okay, if you get that wrong, you can't relaunch. You can't do a first launch again. It's so important to get it right, and it's also very important for a long list of reasons. Not to, it's very easy to go too low. I mean, there are people saying, "Oh yeah, if I put it on £1, I get loads of bids." That's just the eBay mentality. That's not the right approach, because you will miss a lot of the market if you do that. You've got to, The property, when it's launched, has to land in the place where most people likely to be interested in that property are going to find it, right? So if the launch price is too low, you will miss some high budget buyers who may have more than enough to buy that property, but won't even see it if you launch it too low. There's a real sweet spot, and there's a long list of things that's gone through to arrive at this. And it involves looking at stuff online, yeah, but it also involves, as we discussed on the day, taking recently disappointed buyers around it before the launch.
Talk to me about that.
It's not always possible. It depends on the property, but and it shouldn't be done if there aren't relevant buyers, right? But where there is a buyer who, because you just sold a house like this a week ago, right, where you got 25 viewings, you got 10 people offering, you got 5 people like doing second offers, 4 of them got disappointed, 1 of them was successful. You've got 4 very hot buyers who just missed out, right? And you don't look at the price. You just look at the spec of the house and go, that house they missed out on was 4 bedrooms detached with a garden in that area. This one is 4 bedrooms detached with a garden. And you contact those buyers and say, look, we know you just... And this is where personal service is involved and where you do not let AI anywhere near this process, especially at the premium end of the market, right? There are no customers who want to deal with AI when it comes to moving house, right? When you're actually in the moving process, you want to talk to a person. There's too much AI going on in property. It's like a anyway. So you ring them up and you say, we've got this property. It's similar to the one you missed out on. We haven't launched it yet. We're going to be launching it next week or whatever it is, right? We wanted to offer you a pre-launch viewing. And their immediate response is always, how much? And the agent's answer is, we don't know yet. To which the buyer goes, well, why am I going to view a property if I don't know what the price is? Blah, 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 blah. And it's the same every time, right? And they go off on a rant. And you let them finish their rant. And then you say, it's entirely up to you. This is part of us working out what we're going to launch it at. We don't know yet. It's part of our process. It's why you missed out on the last one, right? Because there was so much interest, because we took this much care about it. And this is part of the process.
Sure.
And the process is, if we happen to have buyers who've missed out on a similar property, similar on spec, we offer you, it's entirely up to you, no pressure at all, but we're offering you, no one else gets this, right? No one else gets these pre-launch viewings. Everyone else has to wait till the open day. So it's entirely up to you, no pressure. Would you like to view it, even though there's no price? And they always say yes. Yeah. Right? They just don't like the fact that they've got no control of what the price might be. And so they are then taken around the property with an agent, just a one-to-one viewing, right? They, if they can, they'd like to do about 2 or 3 of these, no more than 4. Mm-hmm. But they won't do it if there isn't a relevant buyer. They won't just try and fabricate it. And then what's really important here is they will show the person around the house and they will just listen. They won't ask any questions, because the purpose of those pre-launch viewings is not to try and procure offers. All right? They are often forthcoming anyway, but the purpose is to try and get other perspectives from actual buyers on what they think of that house. And it helps to flush out problems that the agent hadn't noticed. Right? If you're an agent, you see property after property after property, and often you will overlook something that actually a real buyer is going to go, yeah, that's a bit of an off-putting thing. Like, okay, that's really important. We must remember that when we're talking. Or whatever they love, whatever they hate. And of course, they will often make other giveaway comments like, well, I mean, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the other. And you can tell by their body language and the tone of voice that actually they really like it, but they don't want to give away that they really like it. They will often mutter a price. It's amazing. They'll say, well, I don't think this is worth anything more than 1.5, or I don't think, without even being asked.
Should the agent try and ask them, or have into a process, they would ask them for feedback on what they would be prepared to pay for it, or just wait until it comes out of their mouth accidentally?
You just wait.
Okay.
That's exactly. So part of the rule of this process is you never, ever, ever try to influence anybody. And the reason for that is that when a buyer or a seller experiences a total absence of manipulation, they kind of realize this process is happening whether I like it or not, right? This is just how this goes. They're not trying to spin stuff with me. And so if you ask someone for a price, it will change the number that they would otherwise give you if you didn't ask them. You see what I mean? The psychology is weird.
I do. So coming back to this launch price then, and I understand when you say that the way that it's framed and the reality of it is its only purpose is to get people through the door, and that does make sense. But, and this is probably the Milton Keynes champ's point as well, like at some point the agent has to make a judgment call on what the price actually is, and therefore what the launch price ought to be below that, I presume, of some factor of 10%. So this is it. This is the conversation that happens. But at some point, whatever that price has got to be, they've got to choose.
Correct, but it's not. You work out what the price is and then do something else. But there isn't. You don't know what the price is, and as the agent, you have to lodge that in your head. I do not know what this house is going to sell for. That is the problem that so many agents are having with this process.
So how do they get around that then? And what is the price? What is the method of choosing the launch price?
You actually have to know your market, as in you really have to be able to use a lot of different input factors and use real skill, and it won't be right every time, right? And there are a couple where they've done it and they really thought they'd done it well, and they still had to lower it. It didn't sell, and they had to do they've had to do 2 price reductions this year, only 2, but they were both price reductions on properties they launched with this process that didn't get enough interest. And so like, my point is, there isn't a formula. This is where actual professional skill has a value. Okay.
So the mentality is that launch price is designed to be attractive to get as many people through as possible. So not so low that it would put people off. They think something's wrong with the property. Correct. But low enough, kind of feels a little bit like auction pricing to a degree, where you set the I don't know about auctions, but that opening bid, the reserve, whatever it is, at a certain level. So that's even if it's not a formula, okay, but the general principle of the aim is to make it a price that is a little bit lower than what the market value ought to be for that in order to get there.
No, sorry. What do you mean market value ought to be? You can't say.
But there's got to be a price somewhere. So how would you describe what the launch price of a property should be?
You want it to look marginally better value than the closest comparables.
Okay. I feel like that's a different way of saying the very similar thing, but I get the point. I like the fact it's against comparables as well.
So my point is, you got to put yourself in the eyes of the buyers, and especially when you're at the premium end of the market, right, where you don't have very many comparables.
Oh, it's so much more difficult. Yeah.
And the closest ones are they're not even close. Like,
yeah.
And this is where real skill comes in. Because you've got to make it look like it's. So you don't want the bargain hunters. You don't want the investors who always come. You just don't want those guys. And again, if you go too low, you end up with the market down there.
Yeah.
Right. You also don't want to make it look like these unrealistic sellers, unrealistic agents, stupid overpricing. I'm not going to fucking waste my time going to view that property. Which is what buyers think.
Yeah.
They tell me that every day. In their hundreds, this is what I hear every day. Like, why do they think we're even going to bother viewing? They've clearly got their head in the clouds. It's ridiculous. So this is the point agents are completely blind to, which is you are putting off genuine interested buyers when the price is too high. They think it's a waste of their time even coming. So you are actively off-putting the market for that property when you overprice it, right? It is the worst of any agent that ever says to someone, well, let's just test the market, should be immediately fired and ejected from the industry. Let's just put it up high and test the market. And if we don't go well, then we'll drop the price a bit. Because Christopher Watkins data, 20 CI data, it's there in black and white. If you have to drop the price, you immediately make it harder and longer to sell that property with a higher
that's absolutely right.
And if you know that, you can't then, in good faith, turn around to a client and advise that's what they should do.
Yeah. I'm just chivvying the conversation along, Charlie, because I'm conscious you've got to be away on the hour, and I want to get as much out of you. I'm going to wring you dry as I possibly can. So when one last practicality question then. So when that launch price goes live, is there a price qualifier to it, like offers in excess of, offers in the region of, offers over? Just
My recommendation is nothing, just the
okay,
price.
okay,
Carrington's use guide,
guide. Okay, yeah, all right. Okay,
and
okay.
that works
So
for them.
sorry, yeah, okay.
Sorry, that's it.
I was going to say, okay. So then moving down the funnel a little bit, and I probably should caveat this whole conversation by saying that look, that there is, I think that the day that we spent in Hammersmith was only a fraction of what's involved in this. So this is a fraction of a fraction. So if anybody wants to actually engage with you and find out about this process, to contact you directly, and I'll leave, if you're happy with that, your email address on the show notes and things like that, people to contact you. Is that okay?
Absolutely fine. Well, I've got a bit of an update on what's happening with that whole process.
Okay. Okay. So sticking with the process then. So get the viewers round. We get some offers. How is that managed any differently? Do you set strict deadlines, best and final, stuff like that, or is it just the normal way of offers come in, vendor accepts or not? What happens then?
What we've discovered at this particular end of the market, where it's sort of typically seven figure, 1.2, the low 1 point somethings, right, is kind of where they're. Is that
Just sorry, Charlie? Is that the sweet spot for this you found, or is that just the market that Carringtons are in?
that's just their market.
All
By
right.
the way,
Okay.
this works at any level of the market. The actual logistical operations might be slightly different,
Yeah.
but you don't need to do, like, if you're going down to first time buyer level, you're going to get a much higher number of inquiries, but a lot of them are, as we know, first time buyers, often they're not ready.
Yeah.
But the higher number of inquiries, the better you can filter them out and qualify them, and still end up with, I think the optimum number of viewings is about 20 to 25 in the first 2 weeks, right? And you can, as the agent, you can control that, because you're qualifying when people inquire, want to book viewings, you're qualifying them, right? And you can then hand pick and go, right, we've got so much interest in the property. Let's imagine it's a 300 grand, right, starter home somewhere. You get so much interest on it, you are able to handpick the obviously most proceedable buyers. So you end up doing 20 viewings with buyers who you already know, these guys are absolutely, definitely, they're not early in the process of looking, they're not thinking about it, they've definitely got their finances ready, they understand the process, they've done their research, they've viewed quite a few properties already. So you go through the qualification process and you get 20 to 25 viewings of really well qualified proceedable buyers, and you are going to get a market for that property almost every time very quickly. Now, the offer process is incredibly, it's almost, I want to say it's as important as the launch price.
Okay.
And one of these characters have discovered is that this has become an area of skill that they had kind of forgotten existed. And very, very, when you are dealing with multiple offers on every launch, it changes your working day, right? On every single instruction now, they reckon it's a full 3 to 4 man days on the phone for one property to actually arrive at the final offers.
Right. Okay.
One person's time, non-stop, 3 or 4 days, non-stop, dealing with the offers. Now, they never had that before, right? That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
But that time well spent is what's leading to such a high completion rate, because they are ending up with really solid offers, and they're not communicating each one to the seller because there are just too many, right? They typically having sometimes up to 17 offering parties on a property. So there is a process that we haven't got time to go into now, where basically they talk to every single one, they treat every single person exactly the same. And there's a particular sequence that they go through on the telephone. There's no script. Never use a script. If you don't know how to do your job well enough without a script, you don't know your job well enough, right? When it comes to professional services.
Sure.
No, you might as well be talking to a robot when you're talking to someone that's reading your fucking script over the phone. It's so annoying. But it's a very delicate process where the objective of the process is to achieve the maximum number of concrete offers. By that I mean they're proceedable, and you're not worried that they're going to then regret it if it's accepted and then back out, right? Concrete offers. As the agent, you're less concerned about the actual price because you didn't give a valuation, so you haven't nailed your tackle to the mast on a number. So you are completely objective as to what the number is. The market is determining it. It doesn't matter. You didn't give a valuation. You didn't risk your reputation guessing what it might sell for, right? So you don't care. The market is the market. What you care about is the transaction completing quickly at the best price the market will pay. So this process is curating, if you like, procuring these really concrete offers so that when you finalize that process, then you go and talk to the seller and say, right, we have got 3 or 4 or 5 very attractive offers, all have different things, right? They've all, as you know, especially at that level of the market, sometimes they're overseas buyers, sometimes they're local, sometimes it's buying an additional property, sometimes they're first-time buyers. You never know, right? Every offer has a different flavor to it, different pros and cons. And as often as not, it's about aligning the personal circumstances of the buyer and seller. It's looking at the non-financial motivations. Sure. Who's on what timeline? Because when you pick a buyer and a seller whose timelines complement each other, the chances of that deal falling through are much lower. So then you've got these offers and you go to the seller and you have a conversation. The seller might need a day or two to think about it, because it's amazing how often the sellers are not just picking the top offer. Because this is amazing. We can move on. Let's just crack on. That guy can do it faster. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Charlie, do you happen to know for how long have Carrington's been doing this for?
They started their very first conversation with a new seller on this process, I think end of February, beginning of March this year. So 9 months.
Okay, about 9 months. Yeah. It'd be really interesting to know. And I'm thinking about this from like the vendor's point of view and theirs, I suppose, what the difference. And if you know this, I'd love to know the difference between the launch price and the exchange price on average for those ones. Oh, go on.
Excluding the 2 that failed and had to have price reductions.
Sure.
Every other one went between 3 and 11% over the launch.
Right. Okay. Do Carringtons talk about that number when they're in future pitch appointments? I'm trying my hardest not to call it evaluation. Do they talk about that 3 to 11% range above launch price in a way to calm vendors' nerves, or
yes,
not? They do, okay.
But actually, what they found is the thing that calms vendors' nerves more than anything else is we get an average of 17 viewings on every property we launch. Like that is like 17. Even sellers are like, okay, if I'm going to get 17 viewings, I know this. That's a market, right? Now, they've had some where they got 25 viewings and no offers because there was a problem they just hadn't noticed.
Sure.
Property. By the way, I don't have to go on the dot of the hour. I've got an extra 5-10 minutes. We can go.
Okay, just tell me when you need to go, and then.
But yes. So, the funny thing is, on that question about do they talk about this achieved price over the launch, when sellers get too obsessed about that, they consider it a red flag.
Okay.
Or an amber flag, certainly, because what they want the seller to demonstrate is the market is the market is the market. That's that.
I.e. that the seller needs to move. I guess that's the distinction that you're making there. There's want to move and need to move.
There are want to move and need to move, but there are also, there's a grey area in the middle where they need to move. But they think they've got sort of some kind of discretion where they can still decide not to. But actually, it's why every single one is nuanced and subtle. And there are, on the best extreme end, there are sellers who go, this makes total logic sense. We understand you can't get more than the market will pay. And if you're bringing a better market faster than any other agent, we're in. We get it. We don't care what the launch price is. Your process delivers market value every time. Let's go. Right? Green flags all the way. And those go beautifully well. They sell quickly. The sellers cooperate. The ones who are really like, like you can't doubt these results.
Yeah.
Like the message to the seller is, just shut up and let us do our job, right? And the couple where the final market that was achieved was disappointing to the seller was because in one case the seller had a probate valuation that they didn't tell Carringtons that they had, And the other one was a divorcing couple where the husband was like, "No, it's not enough. I want more." And
Yeah.
they've got a record price in the street, a record price per square foot, right? And they're multiple offers, and the accountants were able to say, how would you go about getting more than that now? And we just brought the entire market in.
Yes.
And
And
you know, in both cases, by the way, the probate one and the other one, the sellers actually after 24 hours went, yeah, they've delivered the market. That's the market. We're not getting better than that, and they accepted it.
okay, that was what I was going to ask. Was like, were the two that fell out of bed because the vendor didn't accept it? But in both cases, they did come to their senses and say, actually, we can't do better than this.
So there's every single time. So we haven't yet had. Actually, there might be. So one is that there's one leasehold flat that's been an absolute shock to everyone about what it won't sell for, where it's a landlord who lives in Australia selling it, and it's got to a price so low, he's like, I think I'm just going to keep renting it.
Yeah.
So okay. I mean, yeah, it's a landlord client. Carringtons will still get to continue renting it out, but they've discovered the market. The point is they discovered the true market for that flat, even though it's way below what anyone thought, including the agent.
So, Charlie, let's move on now. Unless you think there's a key part of that process that we haven't covered over there, I'm trying to get as much in as short a period of time as we can. Do you want to move on to talk about the contracts and the vendor basically choosing their own terms, or is there a key part of the valuation or non-valuation, I should say, process that we've missed out?
Oh my God, we've only scratched the surface of the process. I mean, we haven't talked about the marketing preparation. We haven't talked about how the particulars are written differently. We haven't talked about the presentation. So all of the other non-price factors in the launch, surveys, yes, search packs, there's so much more to this process, right? To ensure that you get these almost perfect results, especially on the viewings, how to handle the viewings. It's all building the psychology up, and it's what Carringtons have said is it's a lot more work, but as in intense work, but it's all income producing work. A lot more inquiries, a lot more viewings, a lot more offers, a lot more time on the phone, but 100% of that work is productive, is fee producing work.
It's very true. Like, having done all these market reports over the last week, you see the amount of stock that gets withdrawn, and you think someone's worked so hard on that for marketing themselves to going on the appointment, winning the instruction, the work thereafter, vendor care, and it just fall out the back. You think, goodness me, that is a lot of.
Yeah. All I'd say to the agents is, how much do you like working for free? It's just bonkers. You should look at every seller with suspicion. Are you going to waste my time, money, and life, and brand and reputation? Until you prove to me that you're not, I don't want to work for you.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the contract bit now, or is this are we gonna? So, because you said to me briefly, you said, yeah, okay, and we've not discussed this really at all. Like I said, I spent a day going through the non-valuation concept with you, but this not a jot. You said it's basically for the seller to choose their own terms. Is that right?
At the moment, a lot of sellers think that if they go with an agent, they just have to accept whatever those agents' terms are. A lot of sellers are unaware that no, they're the customer and they can at least ask for movement on some of those terms. Can we change it from 16 weeks to 12 weeks, please? Can we? Yeah, they know there's a bit of negotiation on the fee sometimes, but that's about it, right? Mm-hmm. What they don't know, especially first-time sellers, is that actually those contracts are horrifically in the agent's favor and not in the seller's favor. And that leads to bad outcomes all round. It leads to the very low success rates. It leads to low fees. Let's just remind everyone, right? Carrington's fees when I started working with them was 1.1%. They're now 2% minimum. Okay? And they've got virtually zero failed transactions. And the contract terms I've just shown you, and I literally just wrote them yesterday, are designed with one thing in mind, which is an improved likelihood of a successful transaction. That is the only thing that's in mind. That contract is designed to help good sellers avoid bad agents and help good agents avoid bad sellers. It's designed to improve the chance of a successful transaction. It's designed to protect the agent from those that would waste your time and money. That's why those clauses about, look, if you back out before we've got offers and stuff, we spent money, you got to reimburse us what we spent. Right? No reasonable seller is ever going to refuse that, because you're simply asking to be reimbursed what your disbursements have been, what your like photography costs or whatever else it might be, right? Any seller that squeals at that, you just don't want to work for them. So it's a preventative measure, that clause, right? And it's also designed to say to communicate to sellers who are reading this, oh right, these guys actually spend money. They spend money out of their pocket, right?
Yeah, that's true.
They're actually spending money in their pocket just on my house. It's not just their time.
Yeah.
They are actually spending money. It's a good thing to remind sellers that actually selling a house is a lot more involved and complicated and expensive and difficult. And that the agent that's doing it is going to be risking time and money to do it. And then, of course, there are the two clauses where if you get 3 offers, proceedable offers, and the seller says no, then you get half your fee. Again, that is designed to put off the time-wasting sellers who've got their head in the clouds on value and are never going to sell. It's designed to protect the agents from those sellers, right? And because if you deliver the market, you've done half the job. You should get half the fee.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And is this contract concept, because I didn't quite appreciate how new this was, that you wrote it yesterday. Is this a part of the no valuation process, or is this a standalone project that you're working on that could be used in traditional methods of selling properties?
It's an overlap. I mean, my no valuations process is not intended to tell any agent exactly how to run their business, and their terms and conditions are theirs. You know, there are other peripherals as well that need to be included or not. So it's a draft set of ideas that people can use or not, customize or not. It's suggested as a discussion point, and to help actually make people go, oh God, I didn't think of that. Oh, I didn't think of that. To help people actually think about eventualities that arise and go, well, yeah, actually, if the agent does do 6 weeks of work, loads of viewings, and gets me offers, and I choose not to proceed, that's not unfair to ask for half the fee. That's reasonable. And a reasonable seller is going to go, yeah, okay, I accept that. And of course, the ones who are accepting that fee are the ones who are less likely to pull out anyway.
Well, I was going to say, I assume a lot of this is about motivation filters to filter out those that are,
right.
Yeah.
And then if a seller does decide to pull out later down through no fault of yours, you've progressed the deal, it's been agreed, it's tied up, it's progressing, and then some sellers, they just change their minds and decide not to move. I think it's bonkers that any agent doesn't get paid at that point. I think, it is equally nuts that agents' contracts don't protect them against that eventuality, as it is nuts that agents are asking for 20 and 26-week contracts.
Yeah.
Which is equally bad the other way around. It's like the current playing field is rotten, just rotten. Don't hate the players, hate the game, right? The game, the way the rules of this game have evolved over the last 25 years, it's just a shitty game for everyone, buyers and sellers alike. It's just a warped, twisted pitch. And effectively what those suggested terms do is they're like, let's just even this out. We're on the same team. The agents and sellers are aligned with the same outcome. That's what makes sense. So, yes, those are the character terms are along those lines. On my advice, that's what I advise them to do. So, I mean, I wrote that version of them yesterday. They're not brand new. I've been working.
Okay.
But I'm about to begin, and this is hot off the press, right? This is the first time.
A scoop. You spoil us, Charlie.
I am about to begin, and I've begun working with, and I'm already talking to national newspapers about this, and PR people, and a lot of companies to make a big consumer-facing campaign to create awareness amongst consumers that long sole agency contracts are a poisonous, toxic thing for a seller.
Yeah,
and you shouldn't accept it. And you should only go for agents. And I'm saying 8 weeks, right? 6 weeks plus 2 weeks rolling notice period. And any seller, any agent that's asking for longer than that, the question I would ask is, why do you need longer than that? Because if you haven't overpriced the property, there's no reason we won't get viewings and offers in that time. And I would be suspicious of any agent that wanted more than that. And where an agent would say to me off the record, yeah, but Charlie, we've had to agree to a price to get the business. We're going to need more time to talk them down on price. That's exactly what we want to try and stop, right? So if you are an agent that wants to overvalue and have long sole agency contracts, well, good luck to you and those sellers. You're both going to be wasting each other's time. This contract won't help you. So I'm going to be basically saying to the sellers, and on Best Agent, where we have this find your agent function, which is a bit like dating for agents and consumers, any agent that wants to voluntarily opt into these terms, not those exact ones, but similar ones, and say, we do not require more than 8 weeks, right? And a couple of other terms as well, is going to get what we're calling the Best Agent badge. And when sellers are looking for agents, and there's no charge for that badge, by the way, any agent offering what we consider to be reasonable terms to sellers when it comes to contract length will qualify for the Best Agent badge. And then in my consumer marketing and consumer PR and national newspaper coverage, the whole campaign is going to be focused on never, ever sign a contract for more than 8 weeks. Right? And if you want to know how to find agents that offer contracts of 8 weeks or less, come to Best Agent. And we should be generating seller leads for agents who are willing to accept those seller leads. Because the other thing is, it's not so much the contract length that bothers me, it's the reason for it. And the only reason for it is to give agents time to take overvalued stock and get it reduced in price. But the other
I do agree with you. I think they'd probably argue it come back to a previous point you made in regards to protecting their investment in the marketing of that property. But I would say, come back to what you said earlier, there are other ways of doing that, achieving that better than a horrific, you get half-year-long contracts sometimes, don't you? So yeah, I'd agree with you.
It's like Connells, Foxtons, Dexters. This will, without naming them, although I plan to name them, I'm very happy to name them, right? I'm going to say this, any seller that even does nothing other than go, right, 8 weeks is my maximum, is not going to go and talk to those big guys anymore. And that will create an incentive for those big guys to have a rethink. And if they're having to do shorter contract terms, they're going to have to stop overvaluing so much.
So I guess my last question there, Charlie, is and I suppose it leads into the sensible kind of conclusion, is sort of what's in it for you in all of this? How do people contact you? How do you work? Because you do like a lot of things. There's consumer facing stuff, there's agent facing stuff, there's bickering with Russell Quirk, and there's everything in the middle as well. So on these subjects, how would someone that's listening to this engage with you if they want to find out more about the evaluation process, the contract process, what you're doing with Best Agent, and is it on a consultancy basis, or does that depend on what it is that they're doing with you? Talk to me about that.
There's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's good. They're all good. So what's in it for me? So Best Agent is an end-to-end housing transaction platform, right? It's already built. It's a portal with all the listings already on it. It's in its early stages. It's still got some glitches and bugs, but basically the main structure is there. It's a portal. It's got a CRM built into it, and it's connecting in conveyancers, brokers, surveyors, all the parties involved. So it's going to be like housing transactions on rails. It is. What's in it for me is no one that I'm aware of, nobody else that I'm aware of, is trying to actually fix the housing market function, okay, which is allowing the market to do its own thing. I'm trying to create a new marketplace, a new housing marketplace where I'm trying to choose the right words, where forward-thinking agents and movers who don't like game playing and like quick results go, this is where you go, right? Mm-hmm. If you are a sensible person, right, and you're a logically minded, sensible person, then you go there because that's where you're going to find a better agent and you're going to move faster. And I want the leads, the seller leads and buyer leads that come from Best Agent going to agents to be of significantly better quality. They will all be better educated, better informed, better prepared to move. So, and because it's a pay per lead model, we're not charging a subscription, and no agent has to buy a lead that they don't want. We want them to. We want the reputation. We want to build the reputation that leads that come via a best agent are substantially higher quality than leads coming from anywhere else. Right. So again, for me, the holy grail is transaction times, and I want to prove that people, whether they're buying, selling, or agents, who come to their housing transaction via best agent, end up with a much higher success rate. Right. Faster transactions, much shorter transaction times. I'm gunning for 8-week transaction times regularly. 8-week transaction times, right? That's the end goal. Where buyers and sellers arrive at best agent, they get armed very quickly with everything that they need to proceed very fast, and then go to market with agents who adopt this process and therefore create a market quickly, get offers quickly, and have fast transactions. So that's what's in it for me, is that I will make a lot of money if that works. Okay, I want a bigger seaplane. I want to take my kids around the world in a seaplane. That's my dream, right? Before they get too old. But it's not just like everyone in the property industry is in it to just make money, and that's fine. Everyone's going to make a living, and there's a need to be serviced. Very few people in the property market are in it to make a difference. And this whole idea of the best agent badge is for those agents who do want to make a difference to be able to be more easily spotted and go, we want to make a difference too. And our terms reflect that. So that's what's in it for me. Agents that want to work, so there are 4 steps, 4 phases for agents who want to work with me. Number 1, you should already have done this anyway. Every agent should have done this already. Go to Best Agent, open up your free back office account, right? It's a free back office account, which is where any seller or viewing leads arrive. Okay. It's activating a back office account. Your property is already in there. So go to Best Agent and activate your back office account. Number 1, totally free, no obligation, no contract, nothing. You're just involved. And that way you will instantly receive any seller leads coming in your area, which is no charge for receiving the lead, no charge for responding to it. We only charge on instruction. Okay. Number 2, if you want a Best Agent badge, very soon you will see a thing there saying, get my badge. And you're just going to have to agree to a couple of things. 8 weeks is our maximum contract term. And a couple of other things about transparency, right? We want those agents to share exchange prices with us so we can build our exchange house price index and create the only transparent and up-to-date house price index in the country. Okay. So for those 2 or 3 things, which cost nothing, just an agreement. Yeah, we agree to do that, X, Y, and Z. You get a badge. And that badge gives you a whole bunch of advantages on Best Agent. You can't buy the badge. So corporates come along and go, hey, we want to pay you and get a badge. No. You got to play by these rules if you want a badge. And it's branch by branch by branch. You can't do it as a whole company. And again, that's free, right? For agents who want to start working with me on what I've been doing with Carrington's, and this is again a scoop, because I'll explain why later, but there's a thing called the Best Agent Club, right? And the Best Agent Club will have a subscription, no contract, just monthly, join it. And in that club, I'll be providing very frequent, regular video conferencing, group meetups, and direct support to any agents that want to start at their own pace implementing the various steps of the no valuations process, right? Because actually all agents want to come to it differently. But that's in a group way. So this lowers the cost of that training and that coaching, if you like. And effectively, it's like coming to rehab. I want to get you out of the addiction of valuing. Like valuation detox, right?
Charlie's rehab. Yeah, okay.
Literally, it's valuation. Value is rehab. You're no longer a valuer, right?
That's great.
And to do that as a community, but within a private environment where everyone can talk to everyone else and me, and we have probably weekly video conferences, like as well.
Hi, my name's Charlie, and I haven't done a valuation for a week. Sat around in a circle. Yeah, okay.
And then beyond that, for agents who want me to actually come out to their place of business, meet their team, that'll be on ad hoc basis. Like it'll be a day rate, depending on who they are, the size, that kind of stuff. So and that'll be subject to my time, my availability, and other things. But what I want to do is I want to open up for every single agent in the country that goes, I love this, it's logical, I love the sound of looking after customers better, I love the sound of getting higher fees, better results, lower fall through rates, I love the sound of never having to lie to a customer. I'm in, right? And they want to get coached on the process, join the club of other agents that are doing as well. It's bestagent.club.
Okay.
And there's going to be a price for self-employed individuals, a price for single branch independents or multi-branch, and then for larger ones there'll be a price to be agreed for the larger ones as well. But but it's going to be a relatively insignificant amount of money, a monthly subscription to be a member of the club that gets you full access to everything that's happening in there. And I was going to say, and then with no contract. I want it to be an easy decision for agents that are interested. Let's just join for a month, see what happens. So you can join for a month, don't like it, you can leave. But I do have, and actually from the Negotiator Awards last Friday, some big agency owners came up to me and said, we want to talk to you about getting this process in our businesses.
No, I bet. Well, Charlie, thank you so much. And I've taken you way over your allotted time. So I'm very grateful for that. And you're probably in lots of trouble. So thank you for that. But that's been a really interesting, really thought-provoking conversation. I'm very grateful for it. And I do agree. And when you actually step back and look at it objectively, there is a lot with the estate agency process that is uneven. I think so. So I think that's really, really interesting. I'm going to share your contact details and URLs in the show notes as well. And all I can do is apologize that we've given a massive subject such a very light touch scratch across the surface of it, because it's a whole thing to get into. But anyway, Charlie, thank you. And for everyone watching or listening, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Property Porn Stars. I hope you appreciated it, and we will catch you in the next episode. See you then.